Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the continued chapter reading of Alfred Goldberg's Pentagon 9/11, and this is the fifth floor. There were no fatalities on the fifth floor, but only because the occupants of the E-ring offices managed to fight their way out before the floor directly above the impact zone collapsed. Fortunately, because the fifth floor was furthest removed from the lower floor's inferno, they had more time to get out the way. The longest and best organized group that escaped, 30 Navy civilian employees of the Surface Warfare Group from Crane, Indiana, had come to Washington as part of an industrial management course. Shortly after 9 a.m., they were attending a briefing by Undersecretary of the Navy, Susan Livingstone, at 5E 490. She began answering questions after the conclusion of her remarks. The attendees felt the building lurch and saw a light fixture and ceiling tiles fall as smoke began spilling from the air vents. Captain Dennis Kern, Livingstone's executive assistant, had a vivid recollection of a very loud explosion that rocked the room. He likened it to the sudden jolt of an earthquake. Livingstone instinctively exclaimed, "There had been a terrorist event. We need to evacuate and get out of here." She and Kern then led the way out of the room to seek escape from the building. Kern was the only one who knew the fifth floor layout. Because none of the offices on the floor had windows facing the outside of the building, neither the meeting participants nor the occupants of other offices in the E-ring had a clear notion of what had happened. While these offices were not seriously damaged, light fixtures had dropped from the ceiling and hung loosely from their cables, and broken acoustic ceiling tiles lay across the floor in the corridor, adding to the uncertainty of movement. As moments passed, the air filled with the black smoke spewing from the ventilators, making it hard to see and breathe. When Livingstone and Kern tried to descend the same staircase that they had used to get to the meeting, they found the way blocked. Later inspection revealed that the explosion had made the stairwell into a chimney full of smoke and flames. Unable to get through to Corridor 5 because of the wooden construction barrier wall across the E-ring near the conference room, Livingstone and Kern turned back toward Corridor 4, encountering some 15 people who had emerged into the hallway from another Navy office. One of this group, Gail Werrick, customarily used a motorized wheelchair to move about the Pentagon. This time, with the help of her two colleagues, she used a walker to evacuate her office. The group, growing to about 50 people, pushed on its way, searched for a way out. When another effort to use the staircase in the direction of Corridor 5 proved futile, Livingstone and Kern concluded that the route toward Corridor 4 offered the only escape in reverse direction in the E-ring once again, countering a drop of about 8 inches in the floor at the major building expansion joint next to the area that later collapsed. Now, let me just add some clarity here. The amount of force that this impact made the plane itself. This is the reason why all this stuff about, bombs being, no plane hitting the Pentagon, a bomb being placed at the Pentagon, no bomb big enough is going to cause this much damage, especially with jet fuel smoke coming out of the vents. And, you had in total 24 people injured by jet fuel. So this whole missile and no plane is, fruitless. Here we have people who actually are witness, hundreds and hundreds of people. Either they were smoke inhalation from the jet fuel, smoke inhalation from the fires, jet fuel burns, pieces of the plane actually stuck on the first floor, all throughout the corridors. There's no rings on the first floor. That's why the plane went straight through the C ring out to A&E Drive, where the impact hole is, the exit hole is. If you're going to say all these people are in on it, good luck. You're going to have to prove that. But, goodness sakes, isn't it much easier to just have the plane crash into the Pentagon than, swap drones and missiles and, holograms? And you have to kill everybody anyway. Why not just let the plane crash into the building? You don't have to involve anyone. And if you're going to say, well, where are the wings? Where are the tail? Where are they? They disintegrated on impact. The plane's going over 500 miles an hour. And that it happened 4 times. It's unprecedented. By the way, all you have to do is take a look at other examples of actual planes that crashed intentional, not unintentional plane crashes, where the plane's trying to land, dumping the jet fuel. For a recent intentional plane crash, look at Germanwings 8925. Find me a wing, find me a tail, find me an engine, find me a whole body. They did. PSA 1771, Pacific Southwest Airlines. Show me a body, show me a tail. Show it. They didn't find it. So this whole notion of why where the wing, where the tail. Stop listening to Alex Jones and Barbara Honegger. Stop listening to them. The amount of force and damage this needed to even reach corridor floor number 5, it's unbelievable, because the plane itself is carrying 38,000 pounds of fuel. That's 11,000 gallons. That's a bomb at this point. That's why they chose flights going from the East Coast to the West Coast, from Logan Airport to San Francisco and Los Angeles International, because they knew the planes would be fully fueled. At this point, the evacuees were walking directly over the impact area hit by the airliners minutes earlier. The drop traced the line of an expansion joint of the building where the upper 4 floors were nearing collapse because of the loss of supporting columns below. Almost 40 minutes after the initial impact, that section of the E-ring collapsed. Now, that's only because on the first floor, there's no wall barriers. The wall barriers begin on the 2nd floor, then the 3rd, to the 4th, and the 5th. That's how the Pentagon works. It's 5 floors. Now, when the plane crashed through the 1st floor, it went straight through and knocked out all the columns. Now, because that section of the Pentagon is being currently renovated, it was a miracle that it lasted 40 minutes, that area of the Pentagon lasted, the impact point. And it's a miracle. Some of the joints actually withstood the wings impact, and then the resulting explosion going forward. And just imagine, the back of the plane actually became the front of the plane in less than half a second. So that means, for those people, where are bodies? First of all, the human body is 92% liquid. Just please use common sense. What do you think is going to happen to a human body when you are being crushed to molecules almost? You don't even have time to think. They put, the lucky thing is that these people probably had no idea what hit them, which is, lucky. Saved themselves the unmitigated terror going through their minds. So, I mean, in the firefight book by Patrick Reed, it stated that the back of the plane became the front of the plane. And when I interviewed the Pentagon Incident Commander, James Schwartz, they found, miraculously, I didn't know this, they found almost a whole body of a woman near C-Ring. Now, C-Ring is, of course, the near A&E Drive. So that means that, all the people that were in the back of the plane, because that's what the phone calls were relating to, that everyone was herded back, they all became the front of the plane. And like when they found human remains of like fingers and feet and shoes, it was all by C-Ring. Majority of the plane debris was by C-Ring. I mean, you could take by A&E Drive, there's pictures that you could see the landing gear. The explosion from E-wall, which is the outside wall. Just imagine the plane impacting it, and then all of a sudden, it's not a plane anymore. It's basically all debris pushed into like A&E Drive. The explosion is doing it. The fireball that pushed whatever debris, the landing gear and stuff, forward. That's why you see the landing gear, the wheel tire. The what's left of the engine is the turbo fan. I mean, nothing large is going to survive. Sam Cardenas and Lori Burrow helped Gail Rurick negotiate the full distance. Without their support, Rurick would not have been able to manage on her own with a walker, which she eventually abandoned. As the group emerged into Corridor 4, the smoke became so black and dense, it forced them to crawl, still hanging on to one another. Low to the floor along Corridor 4 and scarcely able to see their way, they could feel the heat from the burning floor below. Unexpectedly, they heard a voice calling through the black smoke. Is anybody back there? Kern, still in her head, returned the hail and asked the caller to keep yelling so that the group could move in that direction. The caller, Commander Dan Braswell, had gotten out of his office on 5D453 into Corridor 4 immediately after impact. He and some fellow officers looked to the left and realized, hey, somebody coming from the E-ring yet. So we started yelling back there. Braswell urged the Livingstone group to continue moving and drew their attention to an emergency strobe light flashing from a place of relative safety. As the smoke thinned to a gray haze, the evacuees stood up. When Kern saw a fire and smoke suppression door closing across the fourth corridor, threatening to block their path out of the building, he quickly leapt forward, smashing it back against the wall and held it open. After the group passed that point, the smoke in the air thinned and they emerged into the A-ring. Livingstone and Kern, separated from the rest of the group, descended to the first floor, where instead of exiting into the center court, they made their way to the concourse and out to south parking. The Crane group, still pretty much together, also left the building and reached south parking. Using verifiable time references, members concluded that their harrowing journey had taken about 15 minutes, which must have felt like a whole day. When you have uncertainty, like black smoke, you don't know what hit you, you don't know what to do. Very few avenues to escape being suffocated. Heat on the floor, you don't know where the fire is. I mean, uncertainty is what leads to many people dying of smoke inhalation or worse, burning. Along with thousands of other evacuees, the Crane group had to move further away from the building when warning of a second aircraft attack on the Pentagon before the collapse at 10:15 a.m. led to orders to evacuate the crash site in the vicinity. In north and south parking, evacuees were pushed further and further back until they were hundreds of yards away. Concern for others, particularly in the area most affected by the impact, was almost universally reflected in the anxiously repeated efforts by office leaders and staff members to account for all of their colleagues. They checked and rechecked to ensure that all known to them had gotten out safely. Once outside, they searched along the milling crowds until they accounted for all their people. Some went back into the building in an effort to get a complete tally. Sadly, they had to accept that not all of them reached safety. Within minutes of the crash, the total of Pentagon occupants dead and injured stood distressingly high. In addition to the 124 killed, not counting the Army employee who died of injuries days later, the Arlington County Fire Department reported that of the 106 victims transported to hospitals, 49 were admitted. For those in the impact area lucky enough to escape, finding a route out of the building afforded the key to survival. This was especially so for those in the newly refurbished Army and Navy offices on the first and second floors, as well as those on the upper floors. And for those who are inside jobs and stuff, if, the government planned this and, it wouldn't have been attacked the refurbished part of the building. Now, if you want to believe they wanted to minimize effects, well, what's the point of that? Don't you want to maximize effects and shock the crowd and want revenge? I mean, that's what happened anyway. It very well could be that they allowed these attacks to happen. That's why there was no air defense. The Pentagon was always a target by radical fundamentalists, has been even to the early 90s. In October of 2000, they ran a project called Project Mass Casualty, Project Mass Casualty. And this was in preparing of a plane crashing into the Pentagon. This is October of 2000. Because the warning signs were there. The real conspiracy in all this is that we didn't lack information. We had a lot. And we could have had a whole lot more if it was shared. which could have stopped the attacks. So there's your conspiracy. There's no planes, living hijackers, all this stuff. Don't be fooled into that. The real conspiracy is that. Why was the intelligence services, foreign and domestic? I'm covering everything, all my bases here in the last couple of months, reading you the Gerald Shea memorandum, the Pentagon text of all the eyewitnesses who were there, the office of the Inspector General of the FBI and the CIA. I'm trying to give you everything in the last couple of months. And what I'm trying to show you with all these videos is that we had intelligence to stop these people. All right, now why? Why did some people in the intelligence services lie? Why did we expel Israel and Saudi Arabia out of the country when they could have had information that could have stopped these attacks? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but we'll never know because we didn't interview them properly. Why? And why did they keep it hush hush? Why is the FBI covering for Saudi Arabia now? Under pressure for the State Department? Why is the Biden, Obama, Bush administrations, Trump administration all protecting Saudi Arabia from civil litigation? Why isn't anybody talking about the Israeli intelligence service arm, as well as the military that were inside the United States in the year 2000, 2001? All these questions. Now, these are real questions. The 9/11 truth movement ain't going to answer or question. The alt media seems to forget. And of course, the media ain't covering up for them. Well, this is it right here. This is what I'm trying to remind you. All this like stuff about living hijackers, no planes and holograms, that's meant to obfuscate from the real conspiracies, which is right here. This was especially so for those in the newly refurbished Army and Navy officers on the first and second floors, as well as those on the upper floors. Both military and civilians, in spite of their fear and confusion and the chaos that engulfed them, displayed uncommon courage and comradeship in assisting one another to escape the stricken building. Okay, so that's the end of the fifth floor. Chapter 3, the rescuers, the people that were involved in the rescue from Arlington Fire Department, Fort Myer Fire Department, Fort Belvoir, Montgomery Urban Search and Rescue, the FBI, FEMA, that were all involved, in dozens of other agencies that were involved in the Annandale Police Department, all these agencies, local, federal agencies that were involved in the rescue of the survivors of the Pentagon and what they saw inside the building as well. So that will be in future videos as I will continue to cover everything I can relating to 9/11. By the way, we are almost less than 2 weeks away from the anniversary, the 22nd anniversary of the most deadliest terrorist attack on the nation's soil, September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks. All right, guys, see you in the next video, and be safe.